1986, Hyundai arrived in America with a promise so simple it was almost insulting: the cheapest new car money could buy. The XL sold for $4,995. It set an import record in its first year, and within a decade, it had nearly destroyed the company that built it. By the late 1990s, Hyundai ranked at the bottom of every reliability study in the American market. Consumer Reports pulled its recommendations entirely. Mechanics started refusing to stock the parts. The name itself had become shorthand for a bad decision. Today, Hyundai's luxury brand, Genesis, ranks above BMW, above Mercedes-Benz, and above Porsche in the most closely watched quality study in the automotive industry. A brand that did not exist as a standalone company before 2015 has become the benchmark that European luxury manufacturers are now measured against. How does that happen? The answer involves a financial crisis, a chairman who walked his own factory floors unannounced, and a warranty offer so aggressive it turned quality failure into an immediate corporate expense. To understand why, you have to go back to 1986. For the first year, the XL looked like a triumph. Hyundai entered the American market in 1986 with a sticker price of $4,995, lower than anything else on a new car lot. American consumers who had spent years watching Japanese imports dominate the affordable segment saw an opportunity to spend even less. The XL sold 168,882 units in its first 12 months, setting a record for first-year import sales that nobody in the industry had anticipated. By 1988, Hyundai was selling more than 264,000 vehicles a year in the United States. The trajectory suggested a company on the rise. Then the cars started to fail. Transmissions went early. Engines developed problems before the odometer reached 50,000 miles. Rust appeared in climates where rust had no business appearing that quickly. The issues were not isolated. They were consistent enough across enough vehicles that they registered as a pattern rather than a run of bad luck. Consumer Reports pulled its recommendations on Hyundai models. J.D. Power ranked the brand near the bottom of its initial quality study for years running. The structural problem was not difficult to identify in retrospect. Hyundai had priced the XL where it had no margin to invest in the engineering and materials that reliability requires. Volume incentives within the company rewarded production speed over quality outcomes. When a car left the factory and failed in the owner's driveway 6 months later, that cost landed on the warranty department, which had no direct line back to the decisions that produced the failure. The people who approved the compromises never felt the consequences. By 1998, Hyundai's U.S. sales had collapsed to roughly 90,000 units, a decline of nearly 66% from the 1988 peak. The brand that had arrived as a disruptor was now a cautionary example, and the company was about to face something far worse than a bad reputation. In 1997, the Asian financial crisis struck South Korea with the force of a structural implosion. The chaebol conglomerates, the industrial family empires that had built the Korean economic miracle, were suddenly exposed as over-leveraged institutions in a market that had stopped forgiving excess. Hyundai's automotive division faced acute liquidity pressure. The company's competitors faced worse. Kia Motors collapsed entirely and entered receivership in 1997. Hyundai acquired a controlling stake in Kia in 1998 for approximately 900 billion Korean won, absorbing a second broken automotive brand in the middle of its own crisis. Out of this pressure came Chung Mong-koo. When Chung consolidated executive control of Hyundai Motor Group in 1999, he did something that Hyundai's corporate culture had not accounted for. He walked into the factories unannounced, and he looked at what was actually being built. According to multiple business press accounts from that period, what he found confirmed what the sales collapse had already implied. Quality failures were systemic, and the incentive structure that produced them was intact. Chung's response was to invert that structure at its root. Production volume targets could no longer override quality standards. Engineering teams were held directly accountable for warranty claims generated by their decisions. And then came the move that turned accountability into something financial and public. In 1999, Hyundai announced a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty for every vehicle sold in the United States, the most comprehensive coverage any mass-market automaker had offered in the American market. This was not primarily a marketing decision. It was a forcing function. Under the old structure, quality failures were an abstract engineering problem. Under the new warranty, every engine that seized, every transmission that failed, every defect that reached a customer became a direct line item on the company's balance sheet. The warranty made quality failure expensive in real time and in ways that could not be reassigned to another department. J.D. Power's data captured what happened next. Over the following decade, Hyundai moved from the bottom quartile of its initial quality study to consistently above the industry average. The improvement was not a single model year correction. It was a sustained trajectory, year over year, that tracked directly to the moment the incentive structure changed. Same factories, same country, different consequences for failure. Completely different outcome. By the mid-2010s, Hyundai had achieved something that almost no one in the industry had predicted. It was no longer fighting for credibility, it was fighting for leadership. In November 2015, Hyundai Motor Group established Genesis as a standalone luxury brand, the first Korean luxury marque to compete directly in the global market. The lineup that followed was not positioned cautiously. The G80 sedan entered at a price point directly below the BMW 5 Series and the Mercedes E-Class. The GV80 SUV targeted the territory that BMW X5 and the Audi Q7 had owned for 2 decades. Genesis hired designers away from established European brands, recruited engineers with backgrounds at Mercedes-Benz and Bentley, and built vehicles around a feature to price proposition that European competitors struggled to match. The quality data arrived quickly. Genesis ranked first among all automotive brands in the J.D. Power U.S. Initial Quality Study in 2020, then first again in 2021, then first again in 2022, recording 64 problems per 100 vehicles in a year, when the premium segment average was 92 and the mass market average was 180. A brand that had not existed as an independent entity before 2015 had, within 7 years, posted quality scores that Porsche, Lexus, and BMW could not match. Then came the Ioniq 5. Hyundai's electric crossover won the 2022 World Car of the Year, the 2022 World Electric Vehicle of the Year, and the 2022 World Car Design of the Year, the first vehicle in the award's history to claim all 3 simultaneously. Against entries from Mercedes-Benz, Ford, and Kia, a Hyundai product took every category. None of this erases the record entirely. The Theta 2 engine lawsuits, the class action filings, and a formal NHTSA investigation covered approximately 4.8 million vehicles with documented bearing failures and fire risk across models from 2011 to 2019. These are part of the Hyundai story too. Quality transformation is not a destination, it is a practice, and the moment an institution stops enforcing it is the moment the old problems return. What the Theta 2 episode illustrated was accountability. NHTSA investigated, class actions were filed, recalls were issued, settlements were reached, and the engineering decisions that produced the failure were documented and corrected. The warranty structure that Chung Mong-koo put in place in 1999 meant that those failures cost Hyundai directly. That is exactly how the system is supposed to work. So what does this tell us? It does not really tell us anything about cars. The lesson of Hyundai's transformation is the same lesson W. Edwards Deming spent his career trying to deliver to executives who were not listening. Quality is not a marketing decision. It is not a warranty announcement. It is a consequence of what an organization makes expensive. When failure is cheap, absorbed into warranty reserves, reassigned to another department, or invisible to the people who caused it. Failure is what you get. When failure costs the people responsible for it, behavior changes. Not because those people are bad, but because the system around them has changed. Hyundai did not become Genesis by hiring different people. It became Genesis by changing what the existing people were accountable for. The car that American mechanics refused to stock parts for in 1995 is now the brand that BMW studies. That is not an accident. That is what happens when an institution decides that the gap between where it is and where it needs to be is a management problem, not an engineering problem, and then closes that gap on purpose. If you want to see the story of the country that did this first and what it cost America to finally pay attention, that story is already on this channel. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.